Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter. I am a curator in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies, which is a research and development institute and the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books, and Manuscripts in the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. Today, I am joined by two of my esteemed colleagues, so very, very pleased to have them here. Tessa Gadomski is, what's your title?
My job title is Conservation Librarian, and I'm a book and paper conservator here at Penn Libraries.
Right. And then Nick Herman, who you guys have met before, our Lawrence J. Schoenberg Curator of Manuscripts. And the reason that there is, and of course there's Amy Hutchins, who is our friend on Zoom, and Amy is our manuscripts cataloging librarian, and she will be watching the chat. Well, I'll also be watching the chat, so if you have questions as we go, please type them in. Sarah Rydell is also here. Sarah Rydell is the director of the Conservation Lab, and welcome, Sarah. So obviously, if there are questions that you also would like to answer, please feel free to do that. Mm-hmm. And welcome to everyone else. It's great to have so many people here to see such a really, really cool manuscript. It is a 19th century book of hours. And we'll say more about it as we get started. I'm actually going to turn it over to Tessa, I think, to do some initial introductories.
Sure. So maybe you'll notice right away that I am wearing gloves today. One of the most common questions we get asked when working with special collections is the debate over when to wear gloves, when not to wear gloves. We get a lot of questions about, why are you wearing gloves today? Why are you not wearing gloves today? So today I am wearing gloves actually to protect myself more than the object. This is one of those unique instances where there are enough hazardous materials present in this manuscript that I feel that it's really important, and it's part of our policy now at Penn for me to wear gloves when handling this particular object. As you'll see when we show you more of the book, many of the pages, all of the pages, have a very, very smooth white appearance. And in looking into this further, after we noticed that this very tiny manuscript is unusually heavy for its size, we decided to do some testing and found that every single page in the book is coated overall with lead white. So a lot of the time, if there's a small amount of lead pigment present, it's not as much of a concern because the exposure to us is so minimal. But in this instance, because the entire book and every single page has lead all over it, it really is an item that we need to take extra precautions with. So in addition to wearing gloves, I've covered the table with a piece of newsprint. I'll also be using a special cradle today that is made of plastic, so it can be easily wiped down after use. We wouldn't want to use any sort of a porous cradle like fabric or foam, because then
my pillow that I love to use. Yeah, even our foam.
Yeah. So no special pillows or foam today. So I will be throwing away the newsprint, wiping down the cradle, and any other tools that I use to handle it, wiping down the table and throwing away the gloves and making sure that every surface that the object has touched is as clean as possible. So I think that's everything. So I'll hand it back to you.
All right. So we are starting out. You're probably looking at this and thinking, why does that look so weird? And it's actually not the manuscript. That's the slipcase that the book came in. We just wanted to start with this because it's a neat little thing. We're not showing you taking it out because it's a little bit not great, but you can open it up, and if we look inside, you can see on the top there's this really nice marbly paper, which is very pretty. I don't know. I mean, I assume that it's original to the book, so probably a late 19th century box, but we don't know for sure. Oh, did you show the spine? Show the spine.
Yes,
there's a label on the spine. Yeah,
and show it a little bit.
There is. Yeah. So there we go. The little spine label. So it kind of looks like a little book. Mm-hmm. There, and then we'll pull the manuscript down so you can see it's a little. Is a small one. You can see there's the plastic, the plastic cradle there.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that good? There we go. All right. And then the binding, what do we know about the binding, Nick?
The binding is interesting because it is stamped.
It is on the corner.
Well, the corners have the initials of the person the book was made for. So
It looks like TB.
TB. And that's Therese Bernard, who was the granddaughter of Esther Bernard, who it's explained in this book, made the book for her, which was really neat. So
and it was a gift for her first
communion. Yeah.
Right.
So as a child, she would have received this book as a gift. And it's a good example of late 19th century sort of neo-medieval kind of domestic bookmaking in sort of I guess sort of upper middle class France, and as we'll see, it's very beautiful.
Yeah,
and the binding is really
nice. So
spectacular.
Yeah, so we open it up, and there's more of these stamps, very personalized.
There's the signature that our Petit, Famille Petit.
Is it at the bottom?
That's right.
A noted binder in Paris.
See if we can.
And then
as close as I can get. It's a little.
This amazing. Not only is it gilt tooled, but the 6 ovals with the T with Therese Bernard's initials. Those are like inlay, a different type of leather. Morocco leather inlay. Which is a nice, very kind of fine.
It's in very good condition. Yeah. And is the back, can we look inside the back? Is that the same? Sure. I think it's or similar. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same. And you can also see how it's imprinted on the parchment. Is that that is parchment?
Yeah, there's a little bit of
on the facing, on the flyleaf there, which is sort of fun.
But it's a very nice binding. And in fact, we don't have a lot of very, very beautiful pristinely preserved 19th century binding. So that's maybe an additional reason for treating this manuscript with special care, and even with gloves possibly. But
so why don't we start at the beginning?
Okay.
Because it's such an interesting because it's clearly sort of inspired by medieval, but it's also obviously not medieval.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the motifs in it seem to be copied from early facsimiles. So by the middle of the 19th century, they were making chromolithograph facsimiles of famous manuscripts, and even books that collected those motifs, were starting to circulate.
Right.
Like in England, there was the Grammar of Ornament by Owen Jones, which was like a famous kind of Victorian compendium of designs, and it was printed in color. And this was relatively new. And so these are, I think, all of these nice border motifs, which I think are all sort of each one is different. Yeah, they're all different styles, right? They're not like copied from the same medieval book.
They're very different, and you've got some of them, as we've seen as Tessa's turning the pages, like some of them are like this, so like the floral motifs, and then some of them are, more abstract or even heraldic, and then the other ones are like solid colors. So there are a couple of questions already. So Martha asks, when patrons request to see this book, do you assist them, or can they view it individually with cautionary provisions?
Yes. Yeah. So our policy is that patrons must be assisted by a trained member of staff, probably me, to help with accessing this book, because we really don't want people handling it directly because of the hazardous materials we mentioned earlier.
These are really cute. These little animals. Yeah, I love it. It actually reminds me of a little bit of our 13th century Bible, which has a lot of these little guys. And then William asks, have any of the sources for this book been identified? And I don't think so, because it hasn't really been. We haven't had a chance to look at it very closely.
It would be a great project for a student, and I wonder. Some of them look more exact. Other ones, like some of these little motifs, look more, fantastical. Like the person making the book is inspired by replicas they've seen of these marginal figures, but is kind of doing their own thing. Yeah. The frontispiece right at the beginning is a different style, and looks like it's copied from Byzantine, Greek manuscript. So there were also reproductions of those that were in circulation. But it would be a great project to trace all of these and the other thing to mention is that there are other books similar to this that survive, and there's one at the Walters Art Museum,
Yes, which I've seen.
which John has seen.
And that's actually how, because when we did an unboxing video of this, which you can see on YouTube, and Nick opened it up, and the first thing he said when he took it out of the box is how heavy it was. And I think I just recently seen this one, and that's the thing that you notice is it's tiny and it should not be that heavy. And so I was like, maybe that's what happened. I think if I hadn't had that experience with the Walters manuscript, it would not have.
Yeah, I was unaware of that.
But
I guess it must have been a tradition or a technique used
in the late 19th, early 20th century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh, is it actually, is it coming up?
Not that I
You
can
see
see
it,
in this particular
But it's probably
opening,
like,
but due to the nature of books and how the paper has to bend, it is a legitimate concern that coating would flake over time.
mhm, yeah. Yes, and also it just seems like a good idea.
Yes, yes.
So.
And I think
it's-
the treatment of the pages, I'm sure one could find information about this from the 19th century
Mhm.
about why that was done. But it certainly gives a very smooth, kind of beautifully smooth,
Mhm.
kind of almost porcelain-like
Yeah.
appearance to the pages.
Yeah, I'm sure, right. What Sarah says, it creates a smooth surface for the other pigments in gilding. It makes me think of just the gesso that you put on when you do oil painting.
Yeah.
It's sort of a preparation. And it's not something, as far as I know, that anyone did in the Middle Ages.
No, I mean, in the Middle Ages.
It was really
you use sizing, right? So you would treat the parchment with different substances, and also in the Islamic world.
I know in the Islamic world they
would
would
polished with
Mhm.
hummus or like a kind of or talc or something.
Yeah.
So maybe this is
that weird guy.
development of that, but it would be interesting to look at it also like did one buy a pre-made book? Did one buy the pages already? There are these missal painting kits from the 19th century. In fact, I would love for us to be able to buy one for the kind of materials collection at the library. But so there were these kind of kits, and you could sort of make your own book. But I don't think. I mean, this is a very professionally made binding, first of all, but also just the book itself, right? It's not a sort of artisanal thing. It's really made by professional workshop. So was the book sort of I don't know, it's a good question, because we're not dealing with the same methods used in medieval book production.
No,
so was this pre-made? Was it painted when it was already bound or partially bound?
Right. So it was made by this woman for her daughter, for her granddaughter. And I'm looking at the artistic quality of the margins versus the text. We haven't really talked about the text. I mean, the text is not, I don't know. Is that a script? Like what kind of script is that?
The text is sort of a bit awkward, right? I mean, it's not, it looks like it's not written with a quill. I wonder if it's written with this is a good question.
Yeah.
A lot of good questions. We'll get to.
Yeah. So William asks, when we say made by the grandmother, do we mean she had it made or she made it herself? So this is kind of what I was being a little coy. This is what I'm getting to. Like, I'm wondering if the grandmother wrote the text. I could believe that the grandmother wrote the text. I find it hard to believe that the grandmother made the painting herself. But
well, maybe can we turn to the page? Let me see. Does it say?
Yeah.
In is there a preface towards the beginning? So if you
yes, right to Teresa,
my dear little girl, my dear granddaughter. So it says, I can just sort of read it. I'm looking at it on screen, but So that with the greatest act of your life being that of your first communion, on which depends your happiness, it's kind of hard to read. Je t'ai fait ce petit livre. I made this little book for you.
Right.
Which I mean, it's pretty clear, I would say, that means that she made it manual. I mean, made it herself. I mean, I guess it could technically mean that she had somebody make it for her, but you know, je t'ai fait, in French, it would be like je t'ai fait faire. Like I made this be made for you if it was indirect. So I think it's
or that's what she's saying.
And it'd be interesting to look at like the example of the Walters.
Yeah. Well, William also mentioned in chat that Reed College owns a similar book, which also seems to be professionally illuminated, but perhaps written by an amateur.
Interesting.
So there's that. It's also possible that Grandma was just better at art than she was at writing. So
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It looks like the text is written. You're right, because there's sort of corrections and things like it's written perhaps with a brush, which is not ideal for
that could be
Gothic script, you know, or with a fountain pen or something that's not really intended to be, you know, not a nibbed sort of quill pen as a medieval scribe would have used.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you want to go back?
Yes. It's
you don't need to be careful. Yeah, just go back.
I'm gonna go back to somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, I just can't get over. I hope you all have been sort of just watching the page. We're just chattering, but you watch the page as we go through, because they're so neat. It would be, you know, a really fun project to sort of see identifying all of the.
It is really neat. And I think Lindley Herbert at the Walters did a little exhibition about the book they have.
I think there was an exhibition. She also has an article that she published, I think, on the in the Walters on the website, or they had a little journal maybe.
Right. Because it's a kind of a genre that is sort of, I think, because it probably was dismissed as kind of a craft activity, is probably less studied than, I mean, there must be many of these that survive.
Well, there's I'd love to know more about this Reed, the book at Reed College. And you know, the one at the Walters is a little later than this. So that was made in 1908, and it was made by a young woman in France. And one of the things that Lindley does in her article is she does identify a lot of the sources of the pictures, which include like hat advertisements. You know, like there was a lot of like things in there. This one is also made by a woman for a woman. And I think that, you know, as you say, like the whole craft, not only craft, but like feminine craft, you know, is sort of sometimes easy for some people to look down on. But this is so nice.
I mean, it would be a great project to trace all of these, you know, different books of this genre. And I wonder if the one at Reed College does it have the same lead coating.
I'm gonna look that up.
Worried now for young Terry Coettes, you know, using this book in her youth, and you know
hopefully she she got it all. Oh, the monkeys. You can't have a manuscript without monkeys in them.
I mean, it's a very beautifully preserved book also. I mean, also somewhat unusual for our collections here at Penn. I mean, we should say we acquired this book in 2022 at an auction, not knowing that it was lead coated, but it is in such good condition that, you know, you kind of wonder how much it was sort of used, if ever, or if it was one of those presents, you know, that you received that you kind of never look at again.
Here we go. All right, so I'm going to paste this in the chat. I think I found the manuscript. The Reed. So if other folks want to see that, that's the one. Thank you. So Sarah in the chat pasted the link to Lindley Herbert's article. So that's great. Karen says, at one point, nuns took talented girls and taught them a form of calligraphy. I know from experience. That supports the idea of an amateur penman. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. Who's that? That's St. Teresa. It even says there.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Oh, that's so pretty.
And it's interesting
Yeah.
oh, there we go. There.
Yeah, so if we see
Teresa.
Saint Teresa.
Avila.
And there she is.
So I guess for Therese Bernard, this was her namesake.
Oh, right, of course.
Thing.
Yeah. So you'd want to include that in there.
And it's interesting to note like the differences with like I can see these borders on the left. These are a lot like Bourdichon's borders, this great Renaissance painter who in the 19th century was very beloved, and there were a lot of reproductions of his work. And you know, of course, in an actual medieval book of hours, you'd always have facing identical. I mean, the aesthetic was to have facing identical borders, so you wouldn't get this kind of contrast between like totally different border styles, and in the left and top on the left, and then the bottom and right on the right. I mean, like you know, so it's very fantastical in a way.
I love it. It's like fan fiction.
Yeah, it's really
I love it.
And then the Roman numeral I guess pagination at the top is interesting too.
Yeah.
Not unheard of in medieval books, but usually in a choir book, not in a little book of hours.
And it's pretty unusual. No, that's very neat. Will we digitize the manuscript?
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of questions about this. So, you know, that is to be determined, but there's a lot of logistical complications because of the hazardous materials with digitizing this particular manuscript. You know, when you're thinking about exposure to hazardous materials, the three factors you have to think about are duration, proximity, and amount. So for somebody who's digitizing this manuscript, they will have much longer exposure time to a lot more of the manuscript than I'm experiencing currently. And we'll have to put a lot more thought into what that exposure looks like, what equipment the book will be touching, and that's something that we are still in the progress of thinking through in terms of what policy we'd like to have.
Yeah. And I think part of the thing that makes it so time consuming at the moment is that this is the first object that we've had and brought into our collection that's like this. And so we are setting the precedent for the future. And so we, you know, as much as I think and I'm not going to speak for Nick, but like as much as we'd all love to kind of jump in and just do it, it's like worth thinking about the policy and the practice. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then we're a workplace, and so you know we can't sort of just expect that our colleagues who do digitization work, you know, are like
I mean that's
hazardous item for many hours. I mean that's
a really good point.
But I think the goal would be eventually to have it digitized, but it may
hopefully eventually it may just
take more time. Like it can't just be in our regular queue.
In our regular queue. Exactly.
Yeah, because you'd also hope that if it is digitized, that would reduce the need to handle it and the need to worry about the hazardous material concerns.
So that's another part of that. That is so pretty. There's nothing medieval about that, but I think it's very, very
interesting.
pretty.
Yeah. It's I really like the idea of tracing some of these motifs, like figuring out where they come from.
Right.
And which ones are sort of the invention or more sort of composite. I'm noticing the bookmarks.
Oh yeah.
Are those silk or what?
You know, I haven't looked at them very closely, so I'm not sure what sort of textile they are.
But they're sort of ribbons.
They are woven. They seem to be pretty plain woven ribbons of some kind, but I'm not sure what the fiber would be.
Yeah, and it looks like there's two of them.
Yes, there are two that I can see.
Nice.
And then the gilding on the edges there's no sort of stamped tooling or what's called goffering on the edges. I think they're just gilt.
It's just gilt.
But really pristine shape. Oh yeah, this is another two very contrasting borders, like totally different.
Yeah, and the text, you know, the size of the text area is different.
It's different and look at the dog. I mean, that seems to be more of a personal sort of.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, is that what a dog looks like? I don't know. There's been a lot of dogs in here. So
right. And I haven't, again, you know, we try to keep things open for researchers and students to work on. I mean, I haven't looked into Thérèse Bernard, this woman, or unfortunately, that's a pretty common name, I would think, and so it might be difficult to find, specific information about that individual, but it may well be possible, which would be very cool.
Oh, see, there's one of the bookmarks.
Oh, there we go.
Right. So there are multiple bookmarks. I see. So there
A couple. So this is in the Psalms, because there's Psalm 113, I think. So you can't see in the video, it doesn't come across, but that green is incredibly vibrant. It is very vibrant.
Yeah, the colors are a little bit off in the video.
Yeah, they always are. And I keep thinking I should get better lighting. I think better lighting would help.
Oh yeah, these overhead lights are.
They're not
not helping us.
So I apologize to everyone, to all of you.
Another reason why, digitized copies. Well, I mean, they're usually very, very, especially the TIFF files have very good color.
Yes.
Correction.
Yeah.
Color balance.
Oh, that's so nice.
A lovely thing. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we have a couple minutes left. We're gonna keep turning the pages until 2:30. No, not 2:30. I totally misspoke there. 12:30, 2:30, depending on where you are, I guess. Yes. Thank you, Mara. We're not quite done yet. We just want to make sure everybody gets their questions.
Oh, the binding is Petit is the last name, and the Remy, Remy, Petit, Petit.
Oh, there's a great grotesque there with with the head and the chest. I love that. And the cat with the bullhorn. Yeah. That's really fun. Yes. So I know that our friend Christine Kemp is on the chat. Christine works in the Education Commons, and she and I do a lot of creative work, like making fun things using imagery from our manuscripts. And I know that she is taking notes as we page through here. All right, let's see. Martha says some illustrations remind me of the hours of Mar of Burgundy. Brianna, could pigments identification help with figuring out if grandma did both writing and illustrating? I don't know. I don't know enough about like would an amateur use different pigments from a?
Yeah, I think that's hard to say. No, because I think I can imagine a lot of circumstances in which the same person might use different pigments in different places. So having that information might not necessarily lead you to any direct conclusions.
Right. It might be interesting to know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, now there you can sort of see the green there. That's a better green. It's very, very vibrant. Great. It is 12:30. So yeah, we're almost to the end. So
is there any detail right at the end?
There is a table of contents, right? Yes. So here's the little table of contents.
Undecorated.
Yeah. So that's the end. So we've seen the whole. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Tessa.
And also
Teresa. Yeah. Thank you, Tessa, for walking us through. Thanks, Nick, for joining us. Thank you, Sarah and Amy. Thanks to all of you for being here. This was really great. We'll be back next week for the last session of 2024. And I hope you all just have a really great week and take care.